Wonderful. Thank you all for joining me so quickly. We do have to wait for certainly Ms. Foster and Councillor Helmer to join us. So we've got Ms. Foster, just waiting for Councillor Helmer to be able to achieve quorum. Ms. Foster, have you been able to advise the other board members that we're maybe beginning a few minutes late? Or is it best to just have them join in and pause there?
Right now, I'm just trying to get a hold of Jesse. I'm thinking he thinks that we're done this meeting. I'm a little concerned just because of the timing. I'm just trying to reach him.
Okay.
Good to go, Chair.
Great. Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. I just first want to note that our chair, Jeffrey Lang, is absent today, and therefore in his spot, I will be taking over the chair position for today's meeting. And I also wanted to introduce Ali Chabar, who's our newest member of the board. And so I am certain that Ali's expertise, experience, and his interest in seeing the London Police Services and Londoners, working towards their betterment will be very well appreciated and a strong contribution. So although our time will be short together, Mr. Chabar, welcome and thank you very much for your contribution in stepping up in this way. So with the first item is disclosure of interest. So I'll ask if there are any attendees who have any conflict of interest or disclosure of interest. Seeing none, and in the interest of time to move to the additional board meetings, I'll keep moving it forward. So there is, the next item is introduction of new business, and we do have one item that has been added. It is the additional assessment growth request, memo 21-130 from administration. So may I have a motion that the Finance and Administration Committee include the additional assessment growth request for discussion as item number 5. Thank you very much. Moved by Councillor Helmer and seconded by myself, therefore carried. The next item is the minutes of September 16th, 2021 meeting. I hope that you've all had an opportunity to review those minutes, and assuming such, that the committee approves as presented the minutes of the September 16th, 2021 Public London Police Services Board Finance and Administration Committee meeting. May I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Helmer. Seconded by myself and therefore carried. Our next item is the revenue offsetting personnel cost report. So we're moving quickly here, but Director Graham, I hope that you are ready to speak to this report.
Thank you, through you, Chair. There are several government sources where funding is leveraged to offset personnel costs. Related revenue amounts and expenses are included in the 2021 operating budget. So the report that you got contains 2 appendices. Appendix A outlines programs whereby the work done by these members is a necessary part of London Police Service operations. Expenses in relation to these positions would be required as part of the operating budget, whether or not funding was available. And then Appendix B lists programs that are beneficial for the London Police Service to participate in, and should these agreements end, the authorized complement would be reduced accordingly. Some important things to note is the London's allocation under the Community Safety and Policing Grant Local Priorities funding stream is increasing by approximately $476,000 for the next 3-year grant cycle, which runs April 2022 to March 2025, which will help offset personnel expenditures. This grant provides partial funding to support the Community Foot Patrol Unit. And then in relation to the Court Security and Prisoner Transportation Grant for 2021, it is anticipated that the London Police Service will experience a shortfall of approximately $88,000. There are several services and activities eligible for funding under this particular grant. However, due to the pandemic, the courts have not been operating as per usual. An increase in remote court appearances, a reduction in jury trials, and courts being temporarily closed for a period of time place pressures on activities eligible to claim. So the London Police Service has postponed filling vacant positions due to the reduction in the workload, which has offset the impact of receiving reduced revenue. So it is recommended that the London Police Service Board receive the revenue offsetting personnel cost report for its information, pending any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Graham. I'll open it up now for questions from the group. Do we have any questions? Please proceed, Councillor Helmer.
Thank you. Certainly glad to see the increase in the provincial grant. On the one side, I wanted to ask about the Court Security and Transportation Agreement, which is expiring, and what do we think the outlook is for renewal, and where do we think it's headed, I guess, over the next couple months?
I think I see Deputy Chief Betts with his signaling that he'd like to speak. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, you're absolutely right. There is a risk there, and originally we had thought that this was going to be a stable piece of stable funding for us moving into this year. However, there's now some recent correspondence that the ministry is finding we're not back to normal. Court isn't returning to normal, and likely not to return to normal for the foreseeable future. One thing COVID has done is it has demonstrated that there is a way to do business differently. And that means maybe not moving quite so many people back and forth into the court system where they're being seen in person. So they are signaling that there may actually now be a reduction in some funding there. So that's a risk. We have taken some steps to mitigate against that particular impact. We've not been backfilling some of our court prisoner security officer vacancies. And that's allowed us to sort of appreciate or anticipate a vacancy in funding that may result. So it does push us into a position of having to do and look at how we do business at the courthouse, because not all the court security functions are related to actually managing prisoners. The other aspect of that, of course, is that those prisoners, whether they're in the courthouse at 80 Dundas Street or not, are still somewhere. And then when they're not being transported to 80 Dundas Street, if they're in custody, they're staying here at 601. So that does transfer the pressure to us in a different way. We did spend a considerable amount of time pushing back to the ministry on that last year, strongly, and police services were aligned in this, saying that management of prisoners, regardless of where they are, if they are being managed for the purposes of making court attendance, that is management of prisoner security. We still maintain our presence in the courthouse from a physical safety security, which of course we're required to do. And that's a challenge that we'll continue to push. But business has changed, and we expect that they will likely adjust funding as a result. And I can assure you that at the OACP level, we're alive to this, and we'll be united in how we respond across the province in terms of funding.
Okay, I appreciate that, and I think if the province wants to make changes to this program, the key thing will be that it be done in a measured way that we can handle and not abruptly. If they want to dial back the number of people who are providing this kind of service because they think it's going to be different, they need to do that in a slow way so we can handle it the way that you have been handling it, for example, and not all of a sudden have half the money and all the responsibility because we haven't actually changed the court system. So I just wanted to flag that because it does seem like a bit of a looming financial issue. The other grants are set to expire sort of March of 2022, sort of end of the fiscal year. And I'm sure that it's on track for renewal and either keeping funding the same or increases, but I wanted to check on those.
Thank you, Councillor Helmer. Those were items that were noted earlier in the preparation discussion, so I'm glad we were able to discuss them. With that, if there are no additional questions, can I have, can we move this motion to accept the revenue offsetting personnel cost report? Thank you, Councillor Helmer, seconded by myself. The motion is carried. The next item is my overview of an earlier in-camera meeting discussion. So we held an earlier meeting. It actually went a little bit long for the full hour of the Finance and Administration Committee. In that meeting, we approved the minutes of the September 16th, 2021 in-camera committee meeting. We reviewed the year-to-date London Police Services Board financial report as of November 31st. We also talked and provided a number of financial updates, which included the operating budget status as of November 30th, capital project status also as of November 30th, and an update on the status of the London Police Services Board Reserve Fund. I should note we had quite a fulsome discussion in line with issues that have been brought up by the chief for the past several months with regards to overtime, and have a resolution to continue to dig deep into that and looking for opportunities where we can better understand how to address concerns with regards to overtime. Then we did have an update with regards to space from the London Police Services for the Core Area Foot Patrol Office, and we had the addition of a topic that we'll be talking about in this meeting as well, the assessment growth request. And so I won't provide any context to that because I know we'll be bringing that up a little bit later. So can the committee, I'll move a motion that the committee receives my verbal update related to matters discussed in the earlier in-camera meeting. Can we have a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor Helmer, seconded by myself. Motion carried. Now we're on to the new business. So that is the additional assessment growth request memo that be included. Do we have any additional comments, Deputy Chief Betts, that we wanted to make with regard to that, or are we just including it in the materials?
Thank you, Chair, and through you, I just like to make sure that the public is, and anybody that's present is aware that as a result of some late and last-minute discussions with the City Treasurer, the City was able to accommodate a request for an additional 4 frontline officers. I think that is responsive to much of the alarm that the Chief has been signaling to the community about our ability to maintain that presence and response. So that's a great response and a great partnership from the City to help with some additional funding in that regard, and the City Treasurer is supportive of us with that. So just for clarity and just to make sure that that is properly captured, so it'll be an additional 4 frontline constables in addition to the 4 frontline constables we'd already requested as part of the 2022 assessment growth funding. So that brings us to a total request of 15 members. That'll be 12 officers who will all be in support of the frontline in different capacities, 8 of which are frontline constables, and 3 civilian members who help to support the infrastructure in behind the scenes. So thank you, Chair, for that opportunity.
Thank you. That is a good news story. So Ms. Foster, can you guide me in what the motion, is there a motion to accept this as part of the public meeting?
I think we could probably just reiterate what Stu said, that the committee is recommending to the board. It's actually the board that's going to approve this. Sure. In our later meeting today, in the in-camera, and then we can then talk about it in the bigger public meeting, potentially when the media is there and a little bit bigger audience.
Right. So a motion that the Finance and Administration Committee recommend to the board that we bring this to a vote at the public meeting later today. Can I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Helmer, seconded by myself. Motion carried. And with that, we come to the adjournment. So we have we're a little bit late for the next meeting for the board, so we got to get to that right away. Do we have an adjournment? Can I have a mover for the adjournment of today's meeting? Councillor Helmer, we're counting on you. Thank you. Thank you. And seconded by myself. And the motion is carried that the Finance and Administration Committee adjourns their public meeting. Thank you all very much, and I will see many of you later on today.